very important for us to see when you make an attempt. In Luke 17 and verse number 12, and as he entered into a certain village, there met him 10 men that were lepers, which stood afar off, and they lifted up their voice and said, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. And when he saw them, he said unto them, Go, show yourself unto the priests. And it came to pass that as they went, nothing happened while they were doing nothing. It all happened as they went. The 10 lepers stood afar off, probably from a leper colony or whatever, and they cried out for mercy. Lord, have mercy on us. The Lord said, okay, take your step of faith. Go show yourself to the priests, because they couldn't enter into the normal living, or they couldn't enter into society without the priests approving that they are freed from leprosy. So Jesus said, take your steps, start moving. If some of them would have said, well, Jesus, you say such things and we go and show them, and what if it doesn't work? What if he sends us back? Or what if they punish us for even moving towards them? Or what if something happens? I mean, we are afraid. Faith has a risk of its own, but it's a holy risk, which always gives you a good result. It can be a deliberate act of faith that you make, and people might say, you're taking your life into your own hands. Just like the woman with the issue of blood. She took her life into her own hands. She would have never thought, well, I mean, in the natural, she would have thought, I'm going to be stoned. They would stone me to death because I'm not supposed to be in public. I'm not supposed to be in public. She said to herself that if I may touch the hem of his garment, I shall be healed. She said to herself, but she didn't only say, but she started taking steps towards Jesus. When she heard of Jesus coming to town, she said, I'm going to see him. Faith seems to be risk, but it's holy risk. That will always support you, back you up for what you believe in. Faith will always back you up for what you believe in. If you believe, all things are possible to them that believe. If you can believe, all things are possible to them that believe. So as they went, we found that they were cleansed. As they went, they were cleansed. But if they did not go, they would have never been cleansed. If they would have said, oh Jesus, thank you for the word. We're waiting upon you. We're waiting, Lord, for something to happen. So they would have looked at their bodies and said, oh, nothing really happened. Nothing really happened. Oh, Jesus said that something would happen. But Jesus didn't say something would happen. Jesus said, go show yourself to the priest. He always speaks the end result. The entry point was for them to get into society was to show themselves to the priests and then move into society, move back into their families or their homes or whatever. So Jesus spoke the end result and said, okay, since you want me to show mercy, I'm going to use my faith and say, okay, go. Go. Jesus used his faith. He just showed compassion towards them and said, go show yourself to the priests. Have you ever thought that some of the steps that you should be taking, you're not been taking because you've been afraid of what people would say? Or you would have been afraid of what, if it does not come to pass, what would be my state of condition if it does not come to pass? When God instructs, we need to walk according to his instruction. When the physician prescribes something, you make sure that you do it exactly the way it was told. And the physicians of all physicians, the Jehovah Rapha, the Lord God Almighty, tells you certain things to do. He says, I'm your helper. I'm your helper. I will help you. I will help you. I will put you through if you will do what I tell you. Take steps of faith. A person with a spirit of faith will always move in the realm of faith and not consider what the enemy would plan against them, because he is well guarded, well protected. He knows where he stands. He knows how God is going to meet his need. Don't ever despise when God speaks to you and tells you to do something. I wonder, Lord, if something is happening. I wonder if something good will happen. If God commands, you take his word. The enemy will try to stop you. The enemy will try to say, no, it's not possible. No, you cannot. But if God said, do it, do it. That's where the blessing is. Do it. Just don't say, I don't want to. Maybe if it works, maybe so. But God doesn't do it that way. God says, you take steps of faith and you start moving. We'll see the account of the woman with the issue of blood. And see the kind of movement she had. She made up her mind to go before the Lord. She didn't consider what the circumstances are. She didn't consider the kind of things that she would have to go through. She considered Jesus. If you consider Jesus, you will always see your way through. But if you consider what people say, you're going to stay where you are. That's why we declare and say, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. I will not be afraid what man will do unto me. I will not be afraid what man will do unto me. Mark chapter number 5. Mark chapter number 5. A spirit of faith, the person who operates in the spirit of faith would always obey. In verse number 25, a certain woman which had an issue of blood. Mark chapter 5 and verse number 25. A certain woman which had an issue of blood, 12 years, had suffered many things of many physicians, had spent all that she had, and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse. Verse 27, when she had heard of Jesus, she came in the press behind and touched his garment. For she said, that word said there is something that she kept on saying. For she said, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. She said, her saying went before her actions. She kept saying, if I may touch the hem of Jesus' garment, if I may touch his clothes, I shall be whole. She kept up with it. She kept saying, I know it will be hard for me to go meet Jesus. I know it will be a difficult time for me to press through and move with the crowds. And I know that if people see me, they can even stone me, they can even complain. I mean, Jairus was there, the ruler of the synagogue. He would have commanded the people, pick up stones. She's unclean, just kill her. But she didn't care much about anything else, but she only had one thing that was in her mind. If I may touch the hem of his garment, I shall be made whole. So you've got to be one-track minded. You can't be double-minded. You've got to be sure of what God said and what he has for your life. And you're going to be so concentrating and saying, Lord, I'm not going to be distracted. She would have many thoughts coming into her mind. My Jairus is there. I'm going to go back home. She would have said, the people, the Pharisees are around, the common people, and the disciples. I got to move through all these people and some or other touch Jesus' garment. But if you're really in need of something, and if you really say, I don't care what people say, I'm going to walk in the spirit of faith, I'm going to get my miracle. I'm going to believe God to do something great in my life. I'm no longer going to stay where I am. As she went and she did what she determined to do, God honored her faith. And virtue went out of Jesus, and she was made whole. She was made completely whole. Because she didn't want to stay where she had the spirit of faith within her. She said, I'm determined. I made up my mind. Some people who say that they have faith, but they're not determined. They're not made up their minds to make a change. There are certain changes that requires for your miracle.